Hey there, welcome into the Unpaid Interns podcast, and not just only a ordinary Unpaid Interns podcast, but the last one of this semester. Hello everyone, I'm Griffin Epstein. Good afternoon. Thanks so much for joining me, and we have a great senior spotlight episode to finish off this year of the Unpaid Interns podcast. Two, dare I say, GOATs, greatest of all time in IU sports media. Connor Hines and Austin Render join me. Guys, thanks so much for coming on, spending your Friday afternoon with me. How you guys doing?
Thanks for having us, man. I don't know if GOAT status is warranted until we actually are employed and actually have jobs, but no, it's good to be here.
Coming full circle here. Hines and I doing the first couple of these unpaid interns, and here we are on the last one of this semester. It's been a long journey, and I love the work that you've done, Griffin, and I'm glad that you are having us on here for the last one.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity, and I was actually looking, when was the very first Unpaid Interns? It was almost a year ago now to the day, May 18th. You had Tom Ackerman and Trisha Whitaker on. Austin, you were hosting alongside Tamar, and I know Connor did some of those shows early, way back, and probably what feels like many years ago, but was actually less than a year ago last summer. So it is good, as you said, to go full circle with two of the original hosts of the show and bringing guys back on to finish off the year.
Yeah, Trisha was the first guest. I remember that one. It was we were trying to figure out what was going on with the MLB season, and she had no idea. And it's funny how far we've come since then.
Yeah, that's certainly true. It's been a long road, and I know for you guys, it's been a long road for you guys at IU. You've certainly made an impact, and now you're a week away from graduating. Just wondering, how you guys feeling about it?
It's surreal. It's very weird, and I know Render probably thinks the same way, but it feels like not that long ago at all that I was picking up the broadcast equipment at Franklin Hall for my first WIUX broadcast. I think it was an IU men's soccer game. I want to say they were playing Northwestern, but that was my first game with WIUX back in August or September of my freshman year, and it doesn't even feel that long ago. It really does fly by. I mean, people tell you that from day one, but you don't really fully grasp it until you're a week away from graduation. But no, it's been a ride. I know Render and Render was one of the first people that I met here and one of the first people I ended up doing sports media stuff with here. And I think he and I both from day one have just tried to maximize our time here as much as we can and dip our toe into as many areas as possible and not short ourselves in any way. And I really think this senior class in particular, for not only IU sports media, but the media school as a whole, I mean, it's a really solid little group of people and a really solid group of talented people, broadcasters, producers, writers, whatever you might be doing. It's been really fun, and it's all credit to Dr. Clavio and what he's been able to do. But I can't believe it. It's almost gone. Graduation is a week away, so it's pretty surreal.
How about you?
I would agree with most of that, all of that. I remember that first soccer game we did, Connor. It was I want to say it wasn't Michigan State, because that would have been the Big Ten tournament game.
It might have been
Michigan State.
I think so.
Yeah, we did a game together, and I remember really enjoying doing it with you. And later on that year, I remember someone was asking me, so do you have any sports media guys that are your age that you've gotten to know pretty well here this year? And I think you were the only one I could think of. And I was like, I like working with that Connor guy. And little did we know we would join the Hoosier Network the next semester and work together for the next 7 semesters. But it's been a blast. I mean, the fact that we got to come here and basically do everything. We didn't just broadcast games. We reported, we did on-camera work, we did podcasting, we did writing. It felt like everything was kind of checked off the list, which is something I really wanted from my college time. And I have no regrets. I made 0 mistakes when it comes to coming to IU. It was the best decision that I could have made for myself And I would obviously push that along to anyone who's thinking about going into sports media, because you have opportunities at IU that you won't get elsewhere. You don't have to wait in line. If you're good and you can earn it, you can get it freshman year. And that's something I really enjoyed. And the fact that I got to do it for 4 years instead of 2 or 3 was extremely important to me.
Absolutely, something we've all benefited from being at IU. And you guys mentioned a little bit some of the stuff you guys done, but similar to the guests I had on Wednesday, we'd be here for 5 hours if I listed everything you guys have done with IU sports media. But currently, Austin is the play-by-play voice of IU baseball. Got a big game coming up later today, actually, in fact, against Iowa. Connor has a lot of leadership roles. He's the director of the Hoosier Network and also WIUX Sports this year. Guys, through all the different things you've done, from podcasting to broadcasting to studio work, what's your proudest accomplishment at IU?
Oh boy, Hines.
I would have to say, I mean, to an extent, it's just being proud of the fact that we've done so much. Being proud of the fact that we've kind of been able to broadcast games on BTN Student U, but also make an impact on the student media content side with the Hoosier Network. I mean, I think in more ways than one, being able to join and then take over the Hoosier Network website has been a big blessing for both Render and myself, just because, I mean, it really just kind of shifted the perspective and tone of what it takes to separate yourself in this industry and be different in one way or another. And I think that was just a good sort of way for us to all push each other to be better. Even though what Render and I are doing is not directly pertaining to what we did at the Hoosier Network, the fact that we were able to do so much there, whether it be writing, podcasting, on the management side, that's just going to make us better moving forward. So I'd like to think that we left a little bit of a mark on the program by, growing IU sports media a little bit, by growing the Hoosier Network. So, that was a godsend in more ways than one. But I mean, also so many fun moments that I've been a part of. I was thinking back and trying to put together a list, but I mean, just this year alone, the fact that Render and I got to go down to Tampa and call the Outback Bowl, I mean, in the middle of a pandemic, I mean, there are just opportunities that other people, haven't been able to get. And again, it just all comes back full circle again to the opportunities we've gotten at the program. So a lot of good opportunities all the way around. But yeah, there's a lot to be happy about looking back.
Yeah, I think I would say my freshman year, just some of the things that I got to do as a freshman is some of the proudest moments that I had here. The fact that I got to call games in Assembly Hall for 4 years as a lifelong diehard Hoosier fan was really good, A, for just the fact that I got to be in Assembly Hall, but B, for my fandom. I'm now much less of a rabid fan now that I've been a media member for 4 years. It's calmed me down, which is good. I would highly recommend it. But yeah, I think then joining the Hoosier Network, Connor and I convincing Eddie and Zan that we deserved a spot. That was certainly a move by both of us that sent us on a very good trajectory. And then later that year, getting the WIUX sports director job in April. There's a lot to that job. There's a lot more than just being a sports director, but it was a job that helped me kind of learn the direction that I wanted to go in. And I learned a lot from that year. So for me, that freshman year, with all the opportunities that I got, was huge. And that kind of set me on the right trajectory, because I tell people when they come into this media program, you need to make an impact as a freshman. You can't just sit around and be like, well, I'm a freshman, I'll have opportunities down the road. At IU, you can do things as a freshman. And I always say, if Dr. Clavio doesn't know who you are, if the seniors who are kind of the leaders of the sports media program don't know who you are, you're not doing enough. And so that's always been my recommendation. The pandemic throws that off big time. I have not been able to meet really any of the freshmen, but I always say if you want to make an impact here, it has to start as a freshman, and you got to make yourself known to the people in the media school as soon as you get here.
That's a terrific point. Now, both you guys kind of touched on that you guys have some memories, some stories. Wondering if maybe you could share one specific story that stands out as a favorite of your time at IU.
Oh, man. Hines and I have done some road trips. We went to Nebraska for football, which was a blast. We called that game from like a garage way up top above the stadium. And we stayed in an older family's Airbnb basement, which was a blast. We had some early mornings that weekend. It was a very quick in and out weekend. We got there very late Friday night, did the game Saturday, and they left very early Sunday morning. But I'm going to say it, Hines, I think this might be the most memorable game I've ever done. I believe you were doing it with me. The Penn State game, our sophomore year for football.
Oh, my God.
Towards ACL. But it was a tornado on top of Memorial Stadium, which is where we are. We are perched up under a tent on the roof of the press box. Winds were blowing to where like Connor and I really couldn't stand very well. My play sheet, my spotting board flew out of my hands just before the second half started, and somebody in the crowd got my spotting board. But the police literally had to like chain our tent to the ground because they were worried it was going to fly into the stands and hurt somebody. It was a bizarre day. We ended up having to call the broadcast early because you couldn't really hear us. We couldn't stand. We were worried the table and the tent were going to go flying. So we ended up calling it with like 6 minutes to go. But that is one of the moments that I soon will not forget. Us standing on top of that press box, fearing for our lives as tornado-like winds were whipping into Memorial Stadium.
Oh my gosh, that was so surreal. Yeah, that was a good game. Lot of good memories at Memorial Stadium. I've been grateful to call a lot of really fun games in Assembly Hall. I mean, just this year, Austin and I got both the Illinois and Iowa games in Assembly Hall, and I mean, probably the two bright spots for Indiana basketball this year. But I would say the one thing that does come to mind, 2019 Big Ten tournament weekend in Chicago. Sam Niederman and Austin were calling the games for WIUX. I was making the trip with everybody else just for contact for the Hoosier Network. I believe – so I drove up with Kurt, our buddy Kurt, who was there taking pictures for the Hoosier Network, to Chicago for the Big Ten tournament. And then I ended up driving back with Sam. But the reason why – so we get up to Chicago for the Big Ten tournament. We're hoping to be there for a couple days because IU, we're hoping IU makes a run. Of course they don't. They lose to Ohio State in the first game back in 2019. And then Sam and I, meanwhile, had softball games to call back in Bloomington. So basically, it wasn't even 24 hours that I went up to Chicago with Kurt, and then Sam and I turned around right after IU lost to Ohio State and beelined it back to Bloomington in the middle of the night to get back for softball the next day. So, just fun memories, just a hectic 24 hours going to Chicago and back to Bloomington. But just so we could do as many games as possible and just so we could, be everywhere at once. So,
don't ever turn down a road trip. Road trips are where you make a lot of your memories. I was rooming with Sam that weekend in a really funky Marriott downtown Chicago, and he got there late. I think IU played on a Thursday, so he got there late on Wednesday, and then on Thursday we called the game, and then as soon as they lost, he was like, "All right, Connor and I are going back for softball," and we had that booked on my dad's Marriott points until at least Friday. And so I was like, do I stay here by myself or do I go home? Because it was spring break. Yeah. And so I was like, I could go spend the weekend with my family or I could stay here because John Crispin of Big Ten Network is telling me, why are you leaving? You've got a free ticket to the Big Ten tournament. But I ended up going home watching on TV with my dad. But it was just a crazy weekend. That's a good poll, Connor.
I would say the best memories have definitely come in the car on the way to West Lafayette, on the way to Chicago. Road trips have been the best. Just getting to see other Big Ten schools it's just been awesome.
Zan and I road tripping it to
Big Ten
Media Day. That was crazy. We went up for like a day to Chicago for the Big Ten Basketball Media Day. And all of a sudden I'm in a urinal with Stephen Bardo and gosh, I can't remember for the life of me Greg Gard. And then in the stall is John Beeline. And these guys are just having a casual conversation as I'm sitting in the bathroom in the middle of all of it. It was fantastic. It was such great content. That was the day I accidentally tweeted out Mark Izzo in my tweet that went viral. Shout out to Big Cat. And I got more people telling me that I got Izzo's name wrong. My girlfriend monogrammed golf balls, and one of them said Mark Izzo on it. So, I mean, it's a memorable moment. But I would say if we're looking at like game-wise, the Penn State football game this past year is probably the best game I've ever had the privilege of calling, just because that was an emotional roller coaster, not only just for the fans, but for the media members, because you just had no idea what was happening. And it felt like an Indiana football game for about 59 of the minutes. And then the final minute, things just turned on its head. It was a crazy game. One of those games you just wish there were fans there because it was just an unbelievable atmosphere. Fans then stormed the parking lot after the game. It was just a really cool, surreal moment. But such a strange moment when your final call was after a 15-minute, like, instant replay review. So, like, my call wasn't of live action. It was like, here's the ref who says it's a touchdown, game over. It was just very strange, very surreal, but an awesome game to be a part of.
I think you guys could tell stories here for the next 30 minutes. I'll just do two quick points on both those Penn State football games. I remember watching that windy game. I think it was a 3:30 ABC game. Steve Levy was on the call. Turn it on in the second half. It looked like Memorial Stadium looked last year in a pandemic. It was abandoned. There was there was
nobody there.
No one there. Everyone left. And then that, you know,
they got an onside kick in that game, didn't they?
Yes.
Yeah. We were listening to it on the radios. We were driving back to back to the media school. You and I were to take the equipment back. And we're like, wait, they just recovered an onside kick and we're not there? We were rooting so hard for Penn State to hold on because we're like, we're going to be so mad if we leave this game and Indiana comes back and wins.
Well, they didn't, but they did come back against Penn State 2 years later. And I'll just say on your call, Austin, you did get right when Penix dove. You called it a touchdown. I know Don Fisher didn't call it, so I'm not saying you're better than Don Fisher, but I'll give you some credit. I think your radio call in that moment was probably a little bit better than Don Fisher because in the moment, you said he hit the pylon, and I was in the studio, listening. You were ahead of the TV, so I was listening to you. You called it, and it ended up being right. So
I remember seeing it being like, I mean, he hit the pylon, so my initial reaction was touchdown. And the first time I saw a replay, I looked at Derek and I said, "There's no way that's a touchdown." I mean, the ball hit the ground before it hit the pylon, but they upheld it. Yeah, I mean, live from where we were, which shout out Jeff Kaag for allowing us to be there and giving us a spot as a student radio group that we were able to be there. But we were high up. I mean, I just saw the pylon fall down after he dove for it. I just thought touchdown.
All right, guys. Well, some excellent stories. I want to get some advice and some words of wisdom from you guys. As you guys are obviously done so much, had so much success. First question for you, if you are a younger student, a freshman, a sophomore, maybe even an incoming college student next year, what's your advice for getting involved in IU sports media and having success and getting the opportunities you guys have had over the last 4 years?
Well, first and foremost, I mean, this entire industry, sports media in general, is just about putting yourself out there. So you need to reach out first and foremost, you need to just put your name in the pot, basically. Email people like Dr. Clavio, or if you're at another university, whoever the Galen Clavio equivalent is there. Email the sports editor of the student paper. Email the directors of all these different student organizations and let them know that you're interested, and let them know that you're interested in doing anything. Because, this is Griffin has heard this 1,000 times. Everybody's heard this 1,000 times, but you can't be picky. Maybe your first beat is going to be, field hockey for the student paper, but that's where you cut your teeth. And if you're good enough and if you're dedicated to doing field hockey great that first semester or whenever it is, then you're going to get recognized for that. My very first thing that I did at Indiana was, besides WIUX, I guess fall semester of my freshman year was a lot of WIUX, but spring semester when softball rolled around, my very first gig was the softball beat reporter for IUS TV. And that's turned into a really great thing for me. I formed a relationship with that team, with that coaching staff. And this year I've been able to go on a couple of road trips and call some really fun games with them on the radio. So, it snowballs and it turns into better things. So I would say, this is easily the easy answer here, but you got to put yourself out there and you got to be willing to do everything. And at the end of the day, I mean, what this all is about is, regardless of what you're covering, regardless of what you're talking or writing about, whatever that is your Super Bowl for the day or the semester or the week or whatever it is. You've got to make that your thing, and you've got to be the most, knowledgeable about whatever that is. So if you can kind of take that mindset to it and be open-minded and be willing to do whatever, then you're going to get the football and basketball and all the fun stuff going forward. And field hockey's fun too. Everything's fun. I mean, we've had such a great opportunity to cover 24 really, really great athletic programs here at IU. And I mean, heck, we've done probably most of them at this point. So just be willing to do anything.
Yeah, I'll second that. I started on field hockey. That was where I started for IUS TV, and then I got into women's basketball, which also snowballed for me like Connor with softball, to where I got to know Greg Murray, who is the voice of the women's basketball team, which has given me opportunities down the road. Fair or unfair, this business is about who you know, and the only way you're going to know people is if you get out and you're active and you're doing things in the community and in the media program. And I'll be honest, I am not good at putting myself out there, or at least I wasn't as good. I'm still learning how to do that. But as a very young freshman, it was not something I was very comfortable with. I wanted my work and my talent to speak for itself, and I didn't enjoy the whole, hey, come listen to me. Hey, look at me. Please hire me. And so you kind of learn that is a necessary component of making it in this business, is putting yourself out there, like Connor said, making sure that people know who you are, all the directors, the Galen Clavios, because if they don't know who you are, you're not going to get the opportunities. So, and when you get to know these people, you get passed on to other people. Dr. Clavio hooked us up with this podcast, and I needed an internship credit last summer. He said, hey, why don't you work for the media school and host a podcast? And little did I know that podcast was going to create 100 new contacts for me and for Griffin, I'm sure, as we have people on these shows. And it just, you don't know what one thing is going to be your big break. And everyone says it in this business, you have to get a little lucky. But you can't get lucky if you don't put yourselves into those positions. So it's hard work, it's connections, it's putting yourself out there, and then a little bit of luck here and there to help get you to where you need to go. It's knowing the right people. It's getting connected with the softball team. It's getting to know people like Dr. Clavio. And I will say this until I go to my grave, that Josh Eastern was probably the most influential person. And I would tell that to him to his face He would probably hate it because he's an extremely humble guy. But that guy helped me and created an avenue for me to kind of make the most out of my IU experience. So you just don't know. I mean, I remember getting on freshman year and looking at Josh and Greg and the rapport that they had. And I was like, man, it'd be cool to get to know those guys because they're doing what I want to do. And here I am 4 years later in their positions doing what they do. And it just shows you if you want something, go out there and get it. Go out there and meet people, talk to people, and figure out the best way to get yourself into those positions.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool story, Austin. That's cool to hear. One thing, I mean, you guys talk about you're getting involved, and I think, you know, both of you guys are obviously very much go-getters and are taking advantage of opportunities. One thing I found, though, with a lot of students at the IU Media School and in sports media is just taking that first step and finding ways to get involved can be a challenge for a lot of people, especially as they're younger. What advice would you give to those people that are maybe struggling to get their foot in the door?
Don't give up. I mean, I remember when we did Rush HN, which was an interesting thing that the guys ahead of us did at the Hoosier Network. But it wasn't just all freshmen that we took in. I mean, we looked at sophomores and juniors, and I know that like Tamar Scher, who did this podcast with us, was on with you, Griffin, on Wednesday. She joined us a little bit late and immediately got to work and immediately got her foot in the door and started doing things. But my biggest thing would be, in the meantime, while you're trying to get people to respond to you, first, don't feel like you can't nag them, because at some points you're just going to have to do that. Kind of bug them. Be like, if they don't respond, I'm going to keep emailing them. But you can do things on your own. If you're into broadcasting, sit down with some old games, sit down with a video game and broadcast it and create some reels and send that to people. If you want to go into reporting, do some on-camera stuff. Have your friends record you on your phone. Podcasts, you have access to the podcast studio if you email the right people at the media school, or you can record something on your phone. You can't be afraid to do stuff yourself, because if you sit around and do nothing, that's when you get into trouble. And I remember, Hines, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but when Kurt joined the Hoosier Network, they found him because he was doing some of his own stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And because he was producing his own videos and his own photos, the guys at the Hoosier Network were like, this guy seems like he knows what he's doing. He's creating some great stuff on his own. Imagine if we could bring him in and create some stuff for us. And now he's working for IU and he's made it big time. And that's a great story. I look at Kurt as somebody who like made a way for himself. He showed, hey, I'm doing this on my own and I want to do this for you. And that's my biggest advice, is sometimes people are hard to get a hold of in this business. I will tell you firsthand, there are people that just are so busy, who are not great communicators, who just won't get back to you in a timely manner. But in the meantime, there are things you can do yourself to continue to hone in on your craft, announce your video games, announce old games, create your own podcast, do those kind of things to get yourself in front of a mic, in front of a camera, to keep yourself sharp and give yourself something to show. Because if you go to somebody and you're like, hey, I'd love to do some broadcasting, you go to Griffin next year, who's running the WIUX sports program, and you say, hey, I'd love to do some broadcasting, and Griffin says, can you show me some of your work, and you don't have any, then you're going to be in trouble. So at least do something on your own to give yourself a chance.
Yeah, you just have to be proactive more than anything. I mean, this is, again, something that attracts people who want to take the next step. So ditto to everything Austin said.
The media school will weed out those who don't have the work ethic, and but it will also help propel those who do have it. And most of us, the three of us here, and a lot of really, really, really talented people in the IU Sports Media program that are graduating this year, have taken advantage of that.
Absolutely. Now, guys, you know, I know you might have something set up after graduation, or we won't get into the specifics. There haven't been any announcements yet, but you guys, you guys have bright futures. You can have good careers. If you could pick one job, maybe down the road, to have your dream job, though, what would that be?
Oh boy. Well, I think if you know me, you know what mine is. Obviously, not everyone listening to this knows me, but I mean, I'll let this know for the people who are going to be I guess, my bosses here going forward. It's always been a dream of mine to be the broadcaster at Indiana University, and I'm getting a taste of that right now as the baseball broadcaster, and I'm having an absolute blast doing that. Um, would obviously love to keep my foot in the door for whatever presents itself going forward, but it's surreal to put on a sweatshirt like this and go to a game and call for the Indiana station. Like that's just something that I listened to Don Fisher throughout my childhood. He's been a model to me as I've grown up, listening to him, learning from him, wanting to be him. And to say I kind of work alongside him is pretty cool. And so there's certainly things ahead that I hope to improve upon, but I'm not complaining. I'm pretty happy with what I have right now, and I'm thankful to IU for giving me the opportunity.
Austin's in a great spot. I mean, when I first met Render, I mean, I knew from day one that it was just so clear that play-by-play was what he wanted to do. And he's done that every day since. I mean, it was very clear that he had goals and expectations and whatnot. So to see Austin in the position that he's in now with what he's doing this season with Indiana baseball, it just all makes sense. But for me personally, I'm going into TV. And just the way it works is you have to climb the market ladder. I mean, you got more than 200 TV markets across the United States, and then you find a place to cut your teeth for a couple years, and you just kind of jump from small town to a bigger town to even bigger town, and then eventually, I don't know. I would love to end up back home on the West Coast, but I know that's like 1 in a million, so I'm willing to go wherever. But whether that be, at a regional sports network, doing some sort of hosting pregame, postgame, or whether that be at the national level, you can't turn down any opportunity that comes your way. And it's definitely a journey. It's definitely something where you have to be incredibly patient to get from point A to point Z or wherever you want to end up eventually. But you got to trust the process, and you got to embrace the place and embrace wherever you are, and trust that, you will be able to get to where you want to be one day if you just focus on where you are right now. So it's kind of counterintuitive in every way, but going national one day is definitely the dream, and it's definitely something that you have to keep chasing because, like so many things in life, I mean, you're going to have tons and tons of people tell you that you can't do this or you can't do that, or this job is too selective or whatever it might be, but you just got to keep plugging away. And more than anything, I mean, don't get too caught up in where you want to be, but focus on where you are right now and love that and embrace that for what it is. And as hard as that is, that's what it's all about. It's about making whatever you're doing currently, your own Super Bowl, and making that, your thing for now. And, still having those long-term goals in sight way down the line too.
Well, I'll back up Hines. I'll say the same thing you said about me. The first time, I think it was in Galen's J360 class that we had together, and we did some on-camera stuff, and you were just killing the sports stuff. And I said, you know what, that guy is going to do this. And I knew you had some play-by-play aspirations while you're here at IU, but I just kind of knew, that guy is going to eventually drift into the news sports landscape, and he's going to kill it. And I'll also second what he said. I mean, no matter what people tell you, always have a goal and a dream to chase after, because if you don't, then you're not going to have that motivation. You can't just be, and I totally agree with what Connor said. You got to enjoy what you're doing at the time, but it's not a bad thing to be like, I want to be national someday. I want to be Don Fisher someday. And to chase after that and to go for it. And there's nothing wrong with trying to achieve something like that, but also being happy with being where you are currently in the road to that dream. But never give up on your dreams and never be afraid to set a lofty goal, because you never know what can happen. And I think that's extremely important that Connor brings that up, because people are going to always tell you, you know what, you might be shooting too high. You might be thinking a little bit too much of the journey, but you just got to have some self-belief and some motivation that you can get there.
I love the line. I haven't heard this before, but that make every day, or make every game, or make every week that you're covering your Super Bowl. I just think that those are great words to live by, even outside of sports. So I appreciate hearing that.
That's how you try to not be nervous when you do get to a Super Bowl type of thing, because every game you've done, you've tried to tell yourself it is the Super Bowl. And then when the Outback Bowl rolls around, or the Gator Bowl, or whatever IU ends up making it to, I know that's a silly example of a Super Bowl, or an NCAA tournament, which we never got to do. But something like that rolls around, you're not as nervous because you've treated every game like that and you've prepared yourself for that moment.
That's a great point. All right, guys, wrap it up. We're going to have a little fun. We're going to do some rapid fire questions and get some quick answers from you guys. Are you guys ready to play?
Oh, yeah.
Let's do it.
All right. So first question for you guys. Who's your favorite IU player that you've covered or called games at IU?
Oh, gosh dang it. I know it's got to be rapid, but I got to think about it.
First name that pops into your head.
Gabby Jenkins for Indiana softball. She's been an absolute joy to know the last 4 years. She's incredible on and off the field. And now she holds the all-time record for career stolen bases at Indiana softball. She's been awesome and somebody I've formed an awesome relationship with. There are so many student athletes that don't get the love and attention that they deserve, and I think Jenkins is one of them.
I don't know. There's a lot of the women's basketball players that I got to know. Tyra was awesome. Tyra Buss was a fantastic quote. She was always honest with you. She told you what was going on. Really, really enjoyed listening to her. And she's got a future somewhere in the game of basketball, whether that's as a broadcaster or a coach. I know that's kind of the role she's trying to go for, and I think she's got a future in that. I would also throw Brenna Wise in there as well. Someone who was willing enough to allow me to interview her and her dad for a story I had to do for Zach Kiefer's class, and got to know both of them, and they're just an amazing family. So have to give her a shout out as well.
All right, next question for you guys. Hopefully a little bit easier. There's a lot of different classes, a lot of interesting classes at IU outside of the media school. What's the most interesting, most fun, or weirdest class that you took at IU that was not media or sports related?
I'm in
a class right now called the Anthropology of Food. Don't ask me why. As a media school student, we have to take a lot of classes in the College of Arts and Sciences, for general elective credit and whatnot that aren't directly media school classes. And that's an interesting one.
I really enjoyed weather and climate because I'm a nerd. And
that one is fun. That one's a fun one.
That was interesting because it felt like practical. Like now I see things that I'm like, I don't anymore. It was like 2 years ago. But out of the class, I was like, hey, that's a such and such cloud, and that means rain's coming, whatever. Because I'm a nerd, and I enjoyed that stuff. So I would throw that one in there. And, of course, bowling. I mean, bowling was a great class. I'm sad I took it my freshman year because then I didn't get to take it the last 3 years. It was very sad. But a good class there is bowling.
I love asking that question. I think that's my favorite question, honestly, in the rapid fire, because there are just the most interesting classes at IU. But
I took a puzzles class one. I don't even remember what the official name of it was, but it was something like we had to do like mind puzzles or brain teasers and stuff. It was an interesting class.
Sounds fascinating. All right, next question for you guys. Where's your favorite place to grab a bite, either on campus or off campus in Bloomington?
I will be honest. I have some, but I'll be honest. I haven't eaten enough places because I'm a cheap college student. Man, I'll throw one out there. I really, really enjoyed Osteria the Italian place behind Nick's. Really enjoy that place. That's kind of my girlfriend and I's go-to date night place. And also the Tap. I know that's not an extremely local place, but love the Tap.
Those are good picks. Taste of India. Taste of India is awesome. Never does not hit. And Big Woods down behind, what street would that be? Is that
Grant Street?
Grant, yeah.
Yeah.
Big Woods also a chain, an Indiana chain. But
love Big Woods.
Big Woods is awesome.
All right. Outside of food, what's your favorite spot in Bloomington?
Honestly, I think just like all the little neighborhoods around campus, like where I live, about 10 minutes from the sample gates. You know, there's so many cool little neighborhoods, and I don't know, everything about Bloomington is awesome because it's a college town, but there's also a lot of locals who have been here for decades. And, you know, my neighborhood specifically is a lot of student housing and a lot of college students in actual houses. But I don't know, just the fact that it's springtime now, sunny and 75 outside, and you can walk down Bloomington, down into Bloomington, and everything's blooming, and it's a great time of year. All the little neighborhoods around campus.
I would say, for me, it's the golf course. It's the new Foul golf course because that's my happy place. If I can get out there once a week and just kind of get away from everything, spend 4 hours or so. Who knows? It could end up being 5. It's very slow out there, but it's a good time for me to kind of recharge, get away. Even though it's right by the bypass, you don't really hear anything, and you kind of feel like you're in the middle of nowhere. And it's just kind of a nice reset for me in my week.
All right, final question for you guys, and I'll let you guys go. Guys are about to graduate, go out in the world, be real adults. What are you most excited to do now that you will not be a college student?
It's terrifying.
Well, I'd like to buy an apartment, but they're filling up very fast here in Bloomington. I'm having a lot of trouble with that. But yeah, that's a good question. Hines, you got anything?
I would say just being independent. I mean, the fact that I get to like hang up my own stuff in my own apartment with my own TV and my own kitchen, and like that's an exciting thing, I think. So I think just like kind of having your own space, exploring a new place, and being independent, I guess. I'm
100% with you. I think it'll be fun to kind of, like you said, just decorate your own place and be like, this is mine. This isn't like my parents. This isn't shared with my roommates. This is my apartment. I take care of it. And so, yeah, I think the independence of it is exciting.
Well, guys, that's all I have for you today. I appreciate you coming on, and I don't need to ramble about how much both of you mean to me in my 2 years in IU and the impact you've had on me, and the phone calls and text messages and all the broadcasts I've done, and know so many students at the Hoosier Network and WIUX and beyond have been touched and impacted by you. And when I say you're two of the GOATs, I don't sell yourself short. I think a lot of students would agree that your impact is unparalleled with the IU sports media program. So just thank you guys so much for coming on, and thank you guys so much for the impact that you've had at IU in the last 4 years.
Well, Griff, thanks for keeping the show alive. It was a lot of fun last summer while I did it, and I appreciate you taking it through the school year. You've done a great job with it, kept the guests coming in, and appreciate you letting us kind of cap it off. It's exciting to bring it around full circle.
Yeah, thanks, Griff. You're going to do great things. Guys, Griffin Epstein, the next sports director at WIUX.
Yes, sir.
Great things next year with that program. Hopefully we get to travel to some more schools next year as COVID kind of hopefully dissipates a little bit. But no, all the best to you, man. You guys are in good hands next year with Griffin for sure.
Well, thanks, guys, so much. Not in the best way, I think, to finish it off. I appreciate you guys coming on.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Griff.
That will do it for the Unpaid Interns podcast today and for the semester. It's also my final Unpaid Interns podcast. I just want to thank all the guests that have been on over the last, I don't even know how many months. Took over in October for Austin. Again, appreciate Austin giving me the opportunity. And it's been a blast to 3 times a week come on here and and share some stories, bring on some really exciting guests to talk everything from IU sports, to have people like Dave Fleming and Lisa Byington on, and appreciate all the support from everyone that has listened along the way. We do hope to continue the podcast in the future, maybe this summer, maybe in the fall, with a new host to be decided. But until then, if as always, you're missing any of the podcasts, you can check them out on the IU Sports Media YouTube or Twitter page. And you can always listen to our past podcasts wherever you get your podcasts, including on Sprecher. For Austin Render and Connor Hines, I've been Griffin Epstein. We'll talk to you again someday. Have a great summer, everyone. So long.